Hello, this is Gary at Jack Raven Bushcraft. Thank you for watching our video. So this week I wanted to talk about tapping birch trees, or birch tapping commonly referred to. So if you haven't come across this before and you're not sure what it means, then tapping a birch is essentially putting a hole into a birch tree with the aim of extracting the sap. So typically what people have done, and including me, is use this kind of thing, your old brace and bit or a Scotch-eyed auger, that kind of thing, and we would drill a hole into the tree and then collect the sap afterwards. So as in when we would do this, now is about the right time. So what we're waiting for is the sap to start rising in the tree. And there's a couple of things that trigger the flow of the sap. So it's a little more complicated than just waiting for the enough sunlight hours and the temperature to rise. These deciduous trees need there to have been a cold snap first. So it needs to get cold over the winter, then it warms up and the trees kind of start to wake up out of their winter dormancy and they start to pump sap up from the roots. When that happens varies from one year to another. Normally I would be looking at about the middle of March, but of course remember that here we are in the British Isles, spring starts in the south before it does the north, and it also starts in the west before it does the east. So somewhere in the far southwest, spring's going to be earlier than somewhere in the far northeast. So there's always got to be a little bit of variation. Typically around here in Kent, I'm looking at about sort of halfway through March or so. However, it's only the last day of February today, so I'm a little bit early on this. So I'm kind of tempting fate to an extent here. But I've seen a couple of friends of mine that have been getting have been getting sap from birch already this year. So I suspect that things might be happening just a little bit earlier than perhaps normal. So I just want to now go back and correct myself on what I'd said earlier. So typically we'd been using this kind of thing, a brace and bit, to put a hole in a tree, into our birch tree. Now there's been a lot of debate over the last few years about whether as bushcrafters we should be doing this at all, because clearly putting a hole into a tree is going to cause it harm. And I've seen many explanations of what to do afterwards. So, put in clay into the hole afterwards, put in soil into the hole, put in little wooden bungs into the hole. For me, none of those things are ideal. You're still introducing a foreign object into the tree, and there is research that has been done on this into tapping birch trees. So there is in Alaska there is a birch syrup association, so where people are tapping birch trees and collecting the sap and then kind of reducing it down to make a syrup. And they've got guidance there that has been issued alongside the Alaskan Forestry Commission. And so what they recommend is you tap for 5 years, leave it for 2, tap for 5 years, leave it for 2, tap for another 5 years, and then you leave the thing alone. But that's a commercial activity. We're kind of hobbyist bushcrafters, and so we probably need to give ourselves a somewhat higher bar than that, and we should be going out into the woods to try not to cause deliberate harm. So the old brace and bit, kind of put that to one side, and we're going to look at a slightly different technique. So there's a branch here just above me. So what I'm going to do is literally just prune this branch off and hang a container from it. So I've got my folding saw here. Now this is still causing the tree harm. I'm going to cut a branch off, but if we prune sensibly, correctly, we can minimize that harm. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut it just about there, and I'm just going to do a little undercut and then in from the top. Right, so and then discard that bit. Just tidy that up slightly. There. Right, so now, as I said, this is still going to potentially cause the tree harm, but this is a wound that the tree is going to be able to recover from far easier than it is from having a hole drilled into it. I can see a drip of sap already forming on there, so I've got myself a little jar here, so I'm just going to hang that on here, like so, and just let the sap drip out, and then let it kind of build up in our jar there, and then I shall come back and collect it all in a little wall. So as I say, guys, just to reiterate, you will see lots of posts and people talking about tapping birch trees on social media in the next few weeks, because it's that time of year. Don't go for the drill a hole into the tree approach. It is much less harmful to the tree. There's little 2 drops there just dropped off the end of that branch down into my jar. So yeah, just prune the end off instead. It's a much easier thing for the tree to be able to recover from. It's going to be easier for the tree to heal itself from this kind of wound. So what can we do with the sap? So what you've got going on there, it's about 3% sugars in there, so it's mostly water, so slightly sweet water. So you can just drink it. So it is sterile as it's come out the tree. It's sterile, it's good to drink. You can reduce it down to make a syrup. People use it to make birch sap wine, birch sap beer, birch sap vinegar. So there's all kinds of things that you can do with it once you've actually harvested it. Birch is the one that people typically go to when they're talking about collecting sap, but there are other species, well, all species of tree of course have sap in them, and so there are other species that you can do the same thing to. I mean, famously, of course, it's got to be maple syrup. This is how maple syrup is made. If you weren't sure, the sap is extracted, it's reduced right down to make that syrup. So you can do it with other species. Be aware, however, of course, that whilst earlier I said the sap is sterile, that is true, but at the same time some trees have other compounds in them that make them toxic, poisonous, and so they are there to be avoided. So what I'll do now is leave this for a little while and let it continue to drip into our jar there. I'll come back a little bit later on today and we'll take a look and see how our collection's gone. So I've left this for a couple hours or so. I've lost track of time a little bit actually. I've been kind of collecting a bit of firewood up. There's maybe a centimetre in there if you're lucky. So yeah, it's okay. It's not fantastic though either. So I suspect that maybe we are just that little bit too early. So I think what I'm likely to do is well, drink this lot and then give it another week or so, pick another tree and give it another try. But just to kind of recap there, guys, remember, if you are likely to start seeing now lots of people talking about tapping birch trees on various social media platforms, it is probably a better bet to just do this, just trim prune a branch off instead. It's less harmful to the tree. So hopefully you found this to be useful. We will get some more content out onto our YouTube channel and our blog next week, so make sure you don't miss out. Subscribe to our YouTube channel, subscribe to our blog. In the meantime, take care, stay safe.